So I start walking up, and one of the German police comes walking around, and he's fully armed. And I get up there, and it says, were you paging me? He says, are you Paul Pluff? I said, yes. He goes, you come with me.
I'm Ryan Gresham, and this is Gun Talk Nation. All right, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. This Gun Talk Nation brought to you by Smith & Wesson, Range Ready, Colt, Tipton, and Ruger. All right, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. Today on Gun Talk Nation, one of our, oldest buddies from the gun world, Paul Pluff. Welcome in, man.
Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Good. All right, so I'm going to start you off with this question. How did you get the nickname Tonnage?
Oh, jeez. So in my younger days, I was very enthusiastic, energetic, and loved to hunt. And controlling a lot of the hunts as I was doing public relations and stuff for gun companies and filming for television. Never missed the opportunity to take a shot. And I pride myself as kind of like want to be one of those guys, to precise, one shot, one kill.
Yep.
And if you're killing them fast, you can kill quantity.
Kill big and kill quantity,
and so
stack them up
over the years. I think the tonnage thing came to a head one time when we went on a bison hunt, and I dropped a bison with a handgun, and next thing I know, I have this bronze statue being sent to me with the nameplate Tonnage, and that's what started it all.
Yeah, I said Paul will be here a little later today, and KJ said Paul. He was just out of context. He wasn't thinking. I said Paul Pluff. He goes, Tonnage is coming. Yeah, we're going to start there. So yeah, you really were, the handgun hunting thing, you were a big proponent and pusher of that. I mean, you had a big hand in that.
Well, I did. I even worked with Boone and Crockett, with Tony Schoen over there. So Boone and Crockett record is a Boone and Crockett record. And so you could see what you took the animal with, but they never had separation of, and not that I hunt the score, but they never had such separation on it. And so I pushed those guys to do that. And their big deal was the fact that they had all these records going back to the early 1900s and late 1800s, but
right.
They were all manually. And so for them to truly understand what record books would, they would have to digitize it. So I came along and said, well, can't you get like college interns to do that? And he said, well, we could, but you got to pay for it. He said, how much? And we'll get a check to you. The long story short is the company I worked for at the time didn't write them a check only because they went out and got a government grant to do that. So now all their files have been digitized. And so that's when I really, and the reason for that is I was kind of really pushing the handgun hunting thing. Mm-hmm. And if you've never been handgun hunting, it is just, it's for the same reasons why guys like the archery hunt.
Sure.
You get up close and personal, but the neat thing with handguns is if you get proficient, you can stretch it out there. I took a kudu at 193 yards with a handgun.
With a handgun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's still a big challenge.
Yeah.
Geez, we made, I think it was the first year KJ worked for us. We kind of made him go do a hunt with, I think it was a 1911.
Yeah. And
I got to say, we kind of torture KJ. We really do. And it's not on purpose, but it just has become a thing. And he was like, yeah, I'll go do that. That'll be fun. He comes back, he goes, man, that was hard. And he shot this doe at like 50 yards with a 1911. And we've made him do all kinds of ridiculous stuff. But yeah, handgun hunting kind of, even at 50, 60, 70, 80 yards, it makes it a challenge.
It does. And one thing I'll tell you about handguns, especially with technology, what it was, the ammo that we have today, the handguns are more than capable. They're accurate. They're accurate out to distances. But with a shorter barrel, they're just so much less forgiving. So slight movement at the barrel, with let's say a 6-inch handgun, when you get out 60, 70 yards, you're now talking several feet of movement when you think about how that bullet's going versus a rifle's a little bit different. So you gotta be really focused when you're handgun hunting.
A kudu at 193 yards.
Yeah, my longest shot was a whitetail at .235.
Cool.
Well, if you remember Bill Booth, I don't know if you
Oh,
remember
yeah.
Bill Booth and I used to like. It was always a contest.
Well, so okay, kudu in Africa, right?
Yeah.
What's it like bringing a handgun to Africa?
So that was interesting. That the first year I went over there, I did we did kudu, impala, blessed buck. I'm trying to remember all the stuff that we shot. Warthog, a bunch of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first time, and I went over there with a handgun, and it was a large caliber handgun, and everybody was nervous about that, including the outfitter.
Really?
Oh yeah, they had never really had anybody come in and do handguns with it, and they were very nervous about it until it was actually the first animal I took over there was a blessed buck. Until they put me out there, and it was about a 80-yard shot on this blessed buck, and the outfitter was just like, he didn't want to do this until I squeezed off a round and dropped it in his tracks, and he took a big deep breath and says, "Oh, this is going to be fun."
Yeah. Probably one, can you shoot?
Yeah.
And then two, will this gun take down game?
Yeah, but interesting enough, so this is a true story too. So, and when I did it, I took some media people over there, and to do this hunt, and it's interesting because you went through customs and they really hadn't seen a lot of that stuff, and so
Well, that's what I was thinking about, traveling with guns.
Yeah, and it's kind of like checking rifles, but when you get over there, there's a lot more questions, especially when you have a small hand cannon like we were hunting with. And it was interesting enough, my biggest worry going through there, because they limit the amount of ammo you can take with you in your luggage over there. And so my biggest worry was the fact that I was going over there and I was bringing 4 other media people with me. And past experience said some of these guys, somebody's likely to forget their ammo.
Right.
So I made sure I packed plenty of extra. And the whole time we're going through customs, I'm thinking to myself, man, these guys are just they're just going to take the ammo away. They're going to lock me in handcuffs because I've gone way past the limit. We opened up the gun cases, and they're picking up these hand cannons, and they were just so absolutely amazed by it. They were just like, never seen anything like this. This big bore handguns and stuff for hunting and stuff. Never checked my luggage, never checked the ammo. I walked through with all that extra ammo.
They were so enamored with this gun they've never seen. They were like, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. And so they spent, they must have spent a half hour just asking questions and playing with the guns and stuff. And I walked through with about 3 times the amount of ammo that I was really allowed to have.
Well,
so we're all worked out.
Well, you go do something like that with sort of a specialty gun, specialty ammo. You're not going to find that in the corner store in Johannesburg or whatever.
Absolutely not. This was just because of what the caliber was, unless we had a distributor somewhere over there that we could have sent that to. And even that process with the licensing and all that stuff is a little bit of a challenge. So that was my biggest worry. And the funny thing is they were so enamored by these big, large caliber handguns that they never bothered to see what I brought over for ammo. So it all worked out, and we had a really great hunt. Yeah.
Paul, how many years have you been in the gun world and all the different types of jobs that you've done? Because think probably people assume he's a PR guy. Okay, he does PR, but you've kind of done it all.
So I'm going on, let me think here, 42 years in the industry.
In the gun industry. Was that your first like real job, or did you do something before then?
So prior to that, I'd always worked on guns and played with guns, but prior to that, I was actually, believe it or not, I was a mechanic.
Okay, like an auto mechanic?
Yeah, I worked on cars. I was big into cars, race cars, that type of thing. So
cars and guns kind of go together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the demographics are right there. If you love speed, you love guns, you love shooting. It's all the same.
As Tom Gresham would say, we turn money into noise, whether it's cars, planes, boats, guns.
Yeah, absolutely. It all fits together. Yeah. And so I did that. It's kind of interesting. So my background, I was with Smith & Wesson for 36 years. I've been with Ruger for 7 years. I needed a change, and it was the best change I could make at the time. And I love Ruger. The quality of the product, the people there are just fantastic. But I started off there as a gunsmith and a fitter, all those years back.
Okay. So really hands-on.
Really hands-on, building guns, repairing guns. I did both revolvers, semi-automatics, the whole 9 yards. Then they put me in charge of the fitting units themselves. And back then we called it fitting. It wasn't assembly because 42 years ago, the tolerances in the machinery was not what it was today.
Yeah.
So you actually, you had to be a gunsmith.
So they make it, and now they're like, okay, now actually fit it together.
That's exactly what it was.
Wow.
And it was interesting. So it was called hard fitting, and hard fitting came from the fact that when you really go back in time, they used to do a soft fitting. That was before heat treat. So they would build all the parts. They'd kind of mesh them together. Then they would send them to heat treat. All the parts would get hardened.
Did that change the shape or the dimensions?
It could. I mean, it could change the dimension. You get some warpage and stuff, and then it went into what they called hard fitting. So all the parts, when you did soft fitting, all the parts were stamped with a number, so they would stay together. So if you look at the old revolvers, you will see like the yoke of the gun or the cylinder crane. The frame will be stamped, the barrel will be stamped, the cylinder will be stamped, the cranes will be stamped. A lot of those parts are stamped with numbers on them.
They all go together.
So they all
in
go
that
together.
gun.
Yeah. So when it came out of heat treat or bluing, those pieces all stayed together. So then it went into hard fitting. So any of the movements or changes you had from heat treating or the bluing process, the guy fitting the gun would actually do the final assembly and just make sure that everything was smooth and running correctly. So hence the old, if you go to factory, they'll talk about, previous days before they called it assembly, they'd call it hard fitting. And that was the reason for it.
Well, and I love it because I know your background, but like a guy who's a marketing PR guy who actually knows guns, has worked on guns, shoots guns, obviously he's killing stuff at, 2 football fields away with a little handgun.
Yeah.
You did customer service as well, didn't you?
I had customer service under me for over 25 years. And when I say over 25 years, I initially started out that in the department. I made a lot of changes, a lot of updates to it. Then I moved on to sales and marketing, but customer service always stayed underneath me. I was the shell answer man. I was a guy that knew how everything went together and how to fix everything.
Paul knows.
Yeah.
You had to have some stories from customers over the years of asking questions or sending you things in bags and boxes.
I won't even get into the details, but yes, guns coming in, there was a lot of interesting things that you've seen, and you kind of would scratch your head. I will tell you about one incident that I was absolutely amazed by. Guy came in, he sent the gun back, and he said, I just had this thing to the range. He says, 12 rounds, I couldn't get any of them on paper. Read the note, pull a thing. I looked down and you could see the waves and the ripple in the barrel.
The barrel had a wave to it?
There was ripples on the outside of the barrel.
On the outside of the barrel, okay.
And I looked at it, looked at one end of the barrel, couldn't see through, it was plugged. Looked at the other end of it, was plugged. The guy actually went out. His first round was a squib round. He shot, then continued to shoot in there 12 times.
Stuck 12 bullets in the barrel?
12 bullets in the barrel, rippled, sent it back to us complaining about the fact how poorly the gun was made because it was so inaccurate that he couldn't even get anything on paper. So me being the nice guy I was, I had to chuckle. So we disassembled the gun. I took the barrel to a wire EDM and cut it perfectly in half.
Yeah,
so you could see cross-section. So he had sent it back. I took a picture of it and sent it back to the guy and had to congratulate him on the most outstanding feat that I've ever seen anybody do. Put 12 rounds in a barrel and never blew the thing up.
Yeah, we actually really appreciate you doing this because we weren't brave enough to try it, but it proves how strong our guns are.
So I will tell you this, honesty is always the best policy, especially when you're dealing with a manufacturer with a quality issue. When a guy's seen that, he goes, oh my God, I guess I was that stupid. I said, you really admitting that? And he goes, yeah. I said, I'm going to send you a new gun. And I did.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, you hear about people sending guns in boxes and bags of like, I tried to do something. I tried to disassemble it. And people talk about, well, I need to know my disassembly and assembly of a gun, but there's a limit to how much you should disassemble a gun. Is that fair?
Oh, that is fair. The average person does not have the capacity to take a gun completely apart and put it back together just because of the nature of how things go together. And I used to get those phone calls all the time, and I'd affectionately refer them as bag guns because I'd get the serial number and the customers, and I'd give our incoming people warning that we had bag gun serial number X coming through. And so the customer would call up and he would say, I got this thing apart, and it's just, I don't know if there's something wrong with the gun, but I can't get it back together. And he explained it. I said, well, okay, we're going to take this step by step. And he go, yep. I said, step 1. I said, you got all the parts together? Yep. I said, step 2, go to the kitchen. What? I said, go to the kitchen. Well, what do you want to do in the kitchen? I said, do you have any like sandwich bags, Ziploc bags, or anything like that? Oh, yeah. I said, grab 3 or 4 of them. They come back, goes, now what? I said, okay, I want you to put the big pieces in one bag, all the little pieces in another bag, and then I want you to put it in this box and address it, and here's the address. And he goes, well, for what? I said, you're never going to get that thing back together because you weren't smart enough to take it apart, so you're going to send it in, and we're going to fix it for you and charge you.
We will fix it. You're welcome.
Yeah. So, and I mean, lots of times if somebody called up and said, oh, my God, and there again, I'm just, for those that are listening, honesty is always the best policy when you're dealing with an issue with a gun. If you make a mistake and you're honest about it, 9 times out of 10, that factory is going to laugh it off and say, thank you for being honest and take care of you.
Yeah. Gun companies will take care of you.
Yeah.
Well, people always have questions about traveling with guns. Paul has probably traveled more times with guns than anybody listening to this. So after the break, we're going to talk about traveling with guns.
Ruger and Magpul walked into a bar and somehow, instead of starting a fight, they built a handgun masterpiece, the Ruger RXM. This American-made pistol is everything you want: exceptional ergonomics, upgraded features, and a price tag that won't require selling a kidney. Bottom line, the RXM is built for you, your budget, and your obsession with tweaking your gun until it's just right. So go ahead and make it yours. Ruger and Magpul already did the hard part. Let's be honest, cleaning your gun shouldn't feel like you're wrestling an alligator. Enter the Tipton Best Gun Vise 360, a ball head genius of a vise that holds your firearm at any angle you can dream up, because sometimes gravity is not your friend. Mounting an optic, no problem. Cleaning, easy. General maintenance, it's got you covered. Non-marring jar pads keeps your gun scratch-free. Bottom line, whether you're a gunsmith or just a guy who hates chasing parts across the floor, the Tipton Best Gun Vise 360 is the best thing to happen to firearm maintenance since, well, the firearm. Meet the Smith & Wesson CSX E-Series, because apparently Smith & Wesson took one look at their already great CSX pistol and said, yeah, we can do even better. The new E-Series trigger, crisp, clean, smoother than your grandpa's whiskey. And of course, it's optics ready with a clear sight cut so your fancy red dot won't get blasted with carbon like a neglected grill. With 9mm power, up to 17 rounds, and all the upgrades you never knew you needed, the CSX E-Series isn't just an evolution, it's proof that Smith & Wesson refuses to take a day off. Ever wanted to train at a top-tier shooting facility that used to be a slaughterhouse? Well, dreams do come true. Welcome to Range Ready Training, the home of Gun Talk Media, where we turned an abandoned meat processing plant into one of the best firearm training facilities in the country. Led by Chris Serino, Range Ready offers pistol, rifle, women's only, force on force, and instructor development courses. Whether you're a newbie, a pro, or that guy who thinks watching YouTube makes you an expert, we've got a class for you. So if you're serious about getting better, training smarter, and maybe experiencing a little Louisiana charm along the way, come check out Range Ready Training. Meet the Colt Viper, because sometimes you want a sleek, powerful revolver without the extra weight of a full lug barrel dragging you down like that one hunting buddy who forgot his ammo. Again. Built like the King Cobra but trimmed down with a half-lug barrel, the Viper is lighter and faster. Chambered in .357 Magnum with stainless steel construction and modern machining that makes it as smooth as it looks. This thing is polished to perfection. Bottom line, classic Colt style, modern precision, and all bite, no bloat. The Colt Viper.
All right, Paul, traveling with guns, I've had my share of experiences, but you're a guy who does a lot of days on the road, both around the country, but internationally too. I recall a story, and I don't remember all the details, where they held up a plane for you because dudes with machine guns were holding you at
it was
something like this.
It was an international flight.
What had happened?
Interesting story. So, as I said previously, I was in charge of customer service, so I also was in charge of all the international warranty centers. And so once or twice, I travel around the world, visiting these guys, getting them set up all different places. Got to see a lot of neat places, but we'd go over there, and there's a big trade show over in Germany, and a lot of people come together. So at that time, a lot of my international warranty centers, who were also wholesalers, would come and visit me and say, hey, we had a problem with this. I want you to take a look at this. And so I would take some of the defective components and take a look at them. And so I'd bring them back so that I could show them. So I'm going
Bring them back to the factory and say,
back to the
okay,
factory.
yeah, let's take a look at this.
And they were nothing in there could assemble into a complete gun. Okay, there was never any frames. It was like small parts. I had a cylinder. I had a revolver cylinder, and then I had a barrel from a semi-automatic. So I'm going through and get on the plane, and it was actually Frankfurt, Germany, and getting on the plane, and we're at the gate, and I'm sitting at the gate, and we're exhausted at the end of the week. All I want to do is get home and take a good long sleep, and then they start paging me on the intercom. So the guy that ran our international sales kind of looked at me and go, are they calling you?
Is that you? Yeah.
I go, yeah, I don't know.
Bill Paul Pluff, please report to security.
Oh, no, they called me up to the front ticket desk.
Okay, yeah.
And I said, oh, no, maybe they screwed with the ticket. So I start walking up, and one of the German police comes walking around, and he's fully armed. And I get up there, and I says, were you paging me? I says, are you Paul Pluff? I said, yes. He goes, you come with me. He started pushing me.
Pushing you.
And I said, okay, I'm coming.
Yeah.
So we go, goes in there, and he goes, we don't even go back. So we go to where the gate is, where the plane is. And he takes me out that thing. And this was before TSA and a lot of that stuff. But he marches me down the stairs to the lower tarmac down there.
Oh, wow.
And there's 4 or 5 guys down there, and they have bags down there. And back then, they would periodically check luggage before they put on a plane. It wasn't like today. And so they were doing an inspection of my bag, and they found gun parts in the bag. And so at that time, even before terrorists were a thing, they thought I was a terrorist. So
you're in Germany. You got gun parts.
I got gun parts, and this one German police officer was just. He just thought this was going to be the greatest thing. He was going to be able to put me up against a wall, go ahead and execute me right there. It was going to be a good day for him. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, is that the issue? And he goes, yes, you can't have guns in your luggage like this without checking them. I said, none of that is a gun. Those are pieces. I said, no matter how hard you try, you can't make a gun out of it. And it's like putting people together. And he goes, you can make a gun out of that. I said, you can't. Now, the good news for me is there was a U.S. custom agent that was down there at the time. And I go, listen, I said, here's what I do. I gave him my card. I said, here's what I do. I said, it's customer service. I bring these parts back to be inspected. Nothing more, nothing less. They're all from various different models. There's no way to assemble it. Custom agent says, really, you work for them? I go, yeah. He goes, my God, that's my favorite gun. Da, 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 da. On and on. And I go, really? Now, being a good sales and marketing person, you always have your company's logoed hats in your bags. You just do that. Mm-hmm. So I reached in the bag. I said, really? I said, here, have a hat. He goes, seriously? I go, yeah. He goes, man, you're great. I said, yeah. I said, listen, you do understand. You obviously, I said, you know about guns, right? And he goes, well, yeah, of course, they're not going to admit, they're not going to admit they don't. He said, oh, yeah. I said, so you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah,
none of
you
this,
know. You look like a knowledgeable man.
You look like a knowledgeable guy. He says, none of this can be made into a functional gun. So you get that, right? He goes, oh, absolutely, I get it. He goes, I said, so can we dispense with this before I miss my flight?
Yeah.
And I said, he goes, yeah, I get it. I said, listen, if you ever get back to the U.S., you got my card. Look me up. Anything I can do for you. If you ever want a gun, I can get you a super discount on it. Don't go buy retail. He goes, would you seriously do that? I go, yeah. He goes, okay. He looks at me and goes, all right, put us up back in the back and let him go. Now the German guy is like, he doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
And he goes, what you talking about? Da, 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 da. And the guy says, the border agent looks at him and says, am I not the custom agents in charge here? Took a very stern voice. He said, the guy but he goes, am I not in charge? He goes, yes. He goes, I'm in charge. I'm telling you, put his stuff in the bag and let him up, take him back upstairs. And I said, man, thank you. Seriously. I said, you get back, you need anything, give me a holler. Go walking back upstairs. I go in there. At this point in time, they have closed the boarding gate door.
It's done.
It's done.
The airplane's boarded.
Airplane's running, and I can see the nose of the plane starting to back up.
Oh, jeez.
I'm going, now I'm pissed.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, especially when you're on an international flight. Like, I'm going to be here another day.
Yeah. And it gets out about 3 feet, and the plane stops. And it goes right back up to the gate. And the lady at the gate says, "Are you Paul Pluff?" I go, "Yes." She goes, "Sir, come with me." She opened the door. I walk in there.
That never happens.
Never happens. And so the guy with him, he was a VP of marketing at the time, and he was distraught. He didn't know what he was going to tell everybody when I got back. So I walk on the plane, and I'm seated further back on the plane than he is, and he walks by, and he looks up, and he goes, "Oh, my God." He goes, "What happened?" I said, "Interesting story." I said, "They wanted to put me in jail for some gun parts." He goes, "Seriously?" He goes, "Oh, I didn't know what I was going to tell anybody." He says, "All you had to do is tell them that as much as I hated when I was younger," I said, "my mother made me take dance lessons, and it paid off." And I walked back down and sat down in my seat. And he didn't, about 6 hours later in the middle of the flight, he got up and he came back there and just laced into me. Yeah.
I cannot imagine
Yeah.
what that felt like. I mean, traveling and people will say, is it hard to travel with guns? And generally, no, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to know the rules.
You got to know the rules. I mean, and at the end of the day, and I've dealt with some exciting moments in airports where you had somebody behind the counter that didn't know the proper procedure, and because normally you check your gun, you show them that it's clear, you write a little ticket, you put it in and lock it up. And occasionally you'll get somebody who just doesn't get it and they get all excited because of the gun. I've had instances where I've had to ask them to go get their manager.
Really?
So that I can, as I'm trying to explain to them how this works. And so...
well, you do it every week or, a lot of weeks, and they may not deal with this all the time.
No, if we're still out somebody, especially usually when it happens, it's somebody fairly new on the job.
Yeah.
And they just haven't been, you can tell somebody that's been doing it for a while, they just like, yeah, okay, just here, sign this and drop it in there.
Yeah.
Somebody new gets excited about it. And so you'll have that instances. If you're going to travel internationally, absolutely, you got to know the rules, the laws, and the appropriate paperwork that you have to have completed. And if you don't do that, you're going to get hassled. It's just the way it is.
One of the things that I ran into is the first time I went, I can't remember if this was Argentina or Mexico, somewhere I was going, and they didn't tell me that you're supposed to show up to customs before you leave the country. Yeah. And I can't remember the form, but you basically shows that you owned this before you left.
Right. Yeah.
And so that when you're coming back in, you kind of present that paper like you didn't pick up this gun somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's an important one that some people don't tell you about.
It's very important. And so, and you got to, depending on the country that you're going through or coming back from, it's important. But that form that you have to fill out, so like I'll take media over, like if I'm going to Africa or doing stuff. And so I supply the guys with firearms well in advance so they can get them scoped up and stuff. And then I have them fill out the paperwork and stuff because it's important when you come through there. The other thing I remind them, based upon country that you're going to and coming back from, sometimes it's important not only having, because you got to put down the serial number, you have to have a description. The custom agents has to verify that that paperwork is exactly what you're bringing over and bringing back. And in some cases, if you have a serialized optic or a serialized binoculars and stuff, you got to list that stuff too.
Right. Anything of value.
Anything of value that has a serial number, when you're bringing it back into the country, you have to show that you had actual ownership of that prior to going, and you still have ownership of it coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're in town here. I'll do this. Let's, you're in town here for the RXM experience. And we're doing I like the theme, and you and I were talking, and you kind of came up with this idea of like, hey, the RXM has a really cool optics mounting system. Right. What if and everyone's kind of like, putting red dots on guns is hot these days, but people are still getting used to it. What if we did like an irons to dots thing? So that's what we're doing tomorrow and the next day, irons to dots. What do you think?
I think it's pretty cool. And think about the average person. And so our attendees here is going to have a ball. And I'd be willing to bet there's going to be a handful of them that never took the time to mount a red dot or understand it. The nice thing about the RXM is just, it's optics ready. It's a departure from most guns because not only is it optics ready, but the way it's cut and the post it has on there, it'll handle an RMR, a DPP or Delta Point style, and an RMSC. So like 80
all those footprints.
All those footprints, about 80, 90% of all the major red dots and a lot more of the smaller unknown ones fit right on there.
Yep.
And so it's going to be pretty cool. Tomorrow we're going to go out. They're going to get used to the gun. We talk about features and benefits of the gun. They get to see how it functions, how accurate it is, the ergonomics of the gun. Then day 2, they're going to come in, and in the morning, we're going to let them mount and sight in their own red dots.
And that's going to be, we talked about, should we go ahead and just get this all mounted up? It's like, no, actually, I think a lot of people could benefit from mounting it and sighting it in themselves. Because, I mean, you and I, we do this for work. We do it all the time. But it's surprising when I talk to some of my buddies, they just bring their rifles somewhere to have them mount scopes or like, I'll put a dot on it and mount and sight it in for me.
Right.
The other thing is when you sight in a red dot, okay, at what distance?
Right.
And with which ammo? Because that actually can make a difference. I know it doesn't feel like we're doing precision shooting when you're shooting a 9mm handgun, but it actually can make a difference.
It can make a huge difference. One of the, and we're cheating a little bit with this one here because we're using we're going to be using Vortex.
Yeah, the Vortex Defenders,
which is a great dot. But the whole concept of that optics ready setup on the Ruger RXM is you look at those sights and they're slightly higher. They're not like suppressor height sight, but they're higher. And the whole reason for that is to understand all those different optic mounts. You put any of those optics on that gun and it almost co-witnesses with the front sight.
So I'm going to, just to clarify for you guys listening, that doesn't mean line up the sights in the dot.
Right.
It just means it's going to be faster, easier to use the dot because it's where you're normally looking anyway.
So really what you're looking at, and these guys will witness this tomorrow, so when they're sitting there and they're putting the dot on there, they can do some rough adjustments in the classroom before we go out onto the range.
That's true.
And the reason being is they're going to sit there and they're going to take that dot, and you're really looking for that dot to be either just touching or just above. The way this setup is just touching or just above the front sight.
It's, and I always say that because I don't want to confuse people. You're not trying to line up all those things. However, if the optic mounts properly and you can kind of co-witness what Paul's saying is it's so much quicker to get a rough sighting in because if you're lining up the sights, front sight and the rear sight, and then you're able to put the dot where your sights line up, you've kind of achieved it.
You have. And the great thing is if anybody's ever experienced or done any length of shooting, for years, we only shot iron sights. So when you first time you go to from iron sights to red dots, it is a absolutely different animal. It's a whole different presentation. It's getting that muscle memory down, the break on your wrist so that red dot's in it. You can always tell someone that's new to shooting red dots because they're doing like the bobbing dog head movement, trying to move their head around.
Your head around.
They're moving the gun around. And the nice thing about having when we talk about co-witnessing red dots, not only is it faster to kind of rough set it, but really what you're telling the people to do at that point in time, they never shot a red dot, is if you have shot iron sights, when you come up with your presentation, you look for your front sight and you come in like you're going to start to shoot regular iron sights because now you can see the sights through the window of the red dot. And as soon as you start doing that dot just appears very quickly, which means, if you're shooting competition, once you have that set up, it means it's faster on target. It's faster on the second shot, and so lots of times when people first start shooting red dots are always faster to shoot and tend to be more accurate. Their biggest problem is adjusting to the presentation to find the dot.
Right.
And the nice thing about having a setup where they co-witness, per se, is all you're looking for is that front sight, and all of a sudden, as soon as you start looking for that front sight, that red dot's there, and now you're not even thinking about lining up the sights, you're just putting the red dot where you want it to hit.
Have we hit a spot now where you think it makes sense for people to put dots on carry guns? I mean, the reliability and the battery life and all that stuff?
It is. I mean, if you'd asked that question, me being an old guy that I am, if you asked that question 20 years
ago. You've seen the whole evolution of
Yeah,
this.
it's there again. And I start talking when we start talking about even hunting and hunting handguns and whether it's rifles. You know, I've seen in my career quantum leaps in the evolution of quality of firearms and ammunition and now optics. We have come so far, even in the last 10 years. It's amazing. So they are so much more reliable. They are so much more precise than they ever have been. So the nice thing about a red dot is if you have it mounted correctly and you know how to find that red dot, it is a better system. It's a faster system, and it's a much more accurate system because when you shoot iron sights, the alignments have to be perfectly correct if you want to be accurate.
Right.
Once you have a red dot sighted in, lined up, all you need to do is make sure that red dot is on the spot that you want it to hit, and it'll hit there every time.
It is that simple, and yet I feel like we always are trying to tell people, no, you don't understand. It is that simple. You're not lining anything up.
Right.
You know, dot on target, press trigger.
Yep.
If it's sighted in properly, wherever the dot is when you press the trigger is where the bullet's going to go.
Yeah.
If you were at a big white target or something like that, a big piece of white steel, a bullet mark will appear where the dot was.
Exactly.
It's kind of a magic thing.
It is. It is. I mean, and that's what you have to do. And I think the technology, and you start talking about carry guns and that type of stuff, even the technology on those dots compared to 15, 20 years ago, they're half the size. They're not as bulky. And so, I mean, has that time come where it makes sense? Yeah. I mean, you know, you hope you never have to draw in a self-defense mode, but if you do, you know, your life depends on you being able to shoot and be accurate and quick.
Yeah.
And a red dot will do that for you.
And I'll just go ahead and address it. And people, batteries, oh no. Well, if we're talking about a gun that you have those iron sights you're seeing those iron sights through the window of the dot.
Right.
If the dot's turned off, you just use your iron sights, and it doesn't diminish your shooting.
You're 100% correct. I mean, that's the beauty of this when you talk about having a gun that's set up that co-witnesses with the sights. And it takes, like the RXM, it takes even further because it has a tritium front night sight on it as well.
So it has a little glow to it.
It has a little bit of glow. I've heard people, say, "Oh, I can't shoot a red dot in low light or no light because it's too bright." In that case, just look for your tritium night sight.
Yeah.
Line up your sight. If you have a gun that's set up to co-witness with a red dot, and you put a red dot on, there's so much more compact and stuff. It makes all the sense in the world if you're going to carry self-defense to run a red dot. You just need to make sure it's mounted correctly. You need to, and I tell everybody, I don't care, and you know this, and you guys preach it too, but if you're going to carry a gun in self-defense, don't buy a gun and just start carrying it. You have to practice.
You got to practice.
There's a lot of muscle memory. There's a lot of focus on the sights, and the red dot makes it so much easier. But when you engage, if you have to engage, all those things have to come from muscle memory. You can't, you hope that you think that quickly, but you never do.
No, it needs to be as natural as that. You're awkward when you start driving a car.
Right.
10 years after you start driving a car, you can be going down the interstate at 75, drinking a Coke, adjusting the radio, and you're not even thinking about this.
Right.
You're bumping up your cruise control to go faster or whatever, and it's just that subconscious level of operation, and it really is not an impossible feat. You just need to spend some time, get a little bit of training so you know what the heck to practice, but then go practice.
Yeah, and your analogy about driving is a great one. I mean, everybody starts out. Nobody is a Indianapolis race car driver when the first time they handed a set of keys. Everybody's uncomfortable when you first start driving. I mean, I've had kids and grandkids that I've took through drivers, but like you said, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. More becomes more natural. The less you have to think about what you're doing, and the more aware of things that you're being. And shooting's the same thing. I mean, it's like anything in life. Well, I don't care whether it's golf, basketball, baseball, shooting, driving. Repetition, practice makes perfect.
Especially we're talking about self-defense situations. Right. You really, obviously, you want to be good. You don't want to hope for the best.
Yeah, no. And like I said, we all hope that you never have to draw a gun in self-defense. But at the end of the day, mentally you have to be prepared, and physically you have to be prepared. And physically, when I talk physically, it's doing enough practicing with your gun, so it's muscle memory.
Yeah. Paul, you've been with Ruger for a number of years.
Yeah.
Ruger makes they're one of the bigger gun companies out there. They make a wide variety of products. They make bolt guns. They make, you got Marlin too now, right?
Yeah.
You got lever guns. You've got pistols, semi-auto revolvers, 22s, all kinds of stuff. Kind of putting you on the spot, but you think about the whole product line in Ruger. Is there a favorite gun that you guys make, or is there maybe perhaps one that is out there that you feel like, people don't notice this one as much, but I don't know, I just like it?
There's true a lot of models that Ruger makes. So Ruger has an extensive breadth of line, and the only thing that we don't make that we used to make is shotguns, and maybe someday, I tell people when they ask me about is Ruger ever going to make, I said, Ruger's constantly innovating, constantly producing, constantly coming out with stuff. I said, I'm not telling you we're going to do it because I don't know, but someday you just never know.
You just never know. Yeah, might make shotguns again. Yeah,
and I'd love to see him do that. But when you talk about that, so you talk about, do you have a favorite gun? It's kind of interesting. So when Ruger purchased Marlin, that was kind of a big deal, and there was a bunch of us in the company that were steadfast Marlin fans.
Sure. And
so for the opportunity to do this,
everybody's a Marlin fan, right? It's a legendary brand.
But it was very exciting. It's so much so that how we did it, the passion behind it, enthusiasm behind it was so much different than anything else, because we just didn't buy the Marlin company, flipped the switch and started running guns.
No, gosh, no. If anything, people were like, why aren't you guys, go ahead and, it's been a while. Why aren't you making the Marlins yet?
So I'm trying to remember the number, was 180 tractor trailer loads of parts, equipment, and stuff.
Goodness.
Moved from where the Marlins were being made up to our Marion, North Carolina facility. We had to set up the machines. Most of the machines hadn't had any maintenance in years and years, so you had to rebuild all that, all new tooling. Then we took it a step further, because there was such a passion for the Marlins and even the old Marlin rifles. And it came straight from the top down. Chris Chloe, who was our president and CEO, said, these will be the best Marlins ever produced.
Well, that is somebody who understands it, because that's exactly what the gun consumer is going to say. Are these as good as the Marlins of old, right? They're immediately going to compare.
Well, and it's kind of cool so it took us so long because we looked at every component. We looked at every customer service complaint. We looked at every dimension. We looked at the matching. And so you look at the fit and finish and the function of these guns. They are the best, true to what the CEO wanted. These are truly the best Marlins that have ever been produced. And anyone that you put into their hands that have shot any of the older Marlins will say the same thing. So it took us a while. But it was absolutely done perfectly right.
Nobody can complain about these Marlins that are being put out there now.
No, and they just shoot. They're smooth. They shoot great. I've had the opportunity, like I do with most things. I'll take anything and try hunting and
add to the tonnage.
And I've done that with these Marlin rifles several times in the last few years. And it's been a hoot. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed it almost as much as handgun hunting.
Yeah,
and that's saying something for me.
Yeah.
So
the lever guns are
a pretty
soft
special
spot for you.
It is.
Yeah.
But you talk about the other soft spot, and I've still got some pistols. I have a thing for rimfire guns, and I do a lot of stuff. I'm on among all the other stuff I do. I'm on the board of directors for this Classic Shooting Sports Foundation, and so it's all about getting youth out there, coach trained, and competitively shooting, and it teaches them focus, discipline, and gun safety. These kids are absolutely amazing, but we do a lot of it with rimfire.
Yeah.
And so you get into, and I've seen the surge. Rimfire's been around forever.
Sure.
And part and parcel to Ruger, when you think about, the old rimfire challenge started as a Ruger thing, and eventually went to NSSF, and NSSF ran it for a while. But we've had a thing for rimfires, and we should. I mean, we make probably one of the most popular 22 caliber rifles ever made is the Ruger 1022.
Yeah, the 1022 is the F-150. You know, I mean, it is just a staple.
Yeah, then you look at our Mark series pistols. You know, we've innovated to the Mark IV, which is just incredible rimfire pistols. So I'm big. I like the rimfire stuff, and twofold is now it's getting such a resurgence in it just because of the competitive side in the shooting world. Where there's still a challenge, rimfire challenge. There's other disciplines out there now called Metal Madness. Everything revolves around shooting 22s on steel, shooting it quick and
How
having
about
fun.
22 NRL?
22 NRL.
You guys have a Ruger Precision 22.
We do. So
which is a great, cool.
So we have the PRS rimfire that we were a title sponsor for, and we have the NRL 22. So I'm a big fan of the 22 just because it's great. It's a great teaching tool when you're starting use on it, but it's also a caliber as you get older. It's and very seasoned, and even the expert shooters all love shooting it. And now there's so many competitions out there that challenges you with that 22 and test your skill level and get you to want to be better. It's a great caliber, from the start to the competitive world.
Yeah, that's funny, Paul. You kind of alluded to it just then. It was like it's where a lot of people start their shooting, and it's where they go towards maybe the latter part of their shooting. Right. It's just like you start there and you go, man, this is so fun, and you go on this journey of big bore and going fast and all this other things, and you come back to, man, I just love 22s.
So the nice thing about 22 is precision and speed. It gives you both. It allows you to increase speed, but 22s can be very precision driven.
Oh, yeah.
You're thinking about the NRL or the 22 NRL Hunter and the precision rimfire stuff for precision rifle and stuff. You can get real accurate. I mean, you can get crazy accurate with that stuff. And so you look at what Ruger's doing. I mean, we just came out with that new carbon fiber 1022.
Yeah.
And you think about it, if you shot it, why was this thing built? And getting back to my old age, my days of being gas in cars, I mean, it's when you have the need for speed. That carbon fiber 22.
Yeah.
It's super accurate, and man, you can shoot that thing fast.
Pretty lightweight too, right?
Very lightweight.
Yeah. Fun. Paul, I'm glad you're here with us this week, man.
I'm excited. I'm always stoked to come down here. This is highlight of my year.
Always good to catch up. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and be looking. We'll be filming some stuff, and so you'll be seeing content from this event, RXM, the Irons to Dots, you and the Vortex Optics, making a splash, man. It's good.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good week. I'm very. I can't wait to see the attendees here. This is love for lots of them. This will be the first time to pull the trigger on that RXM, and I think they're going to be pleased. And I've seen the setup that you guys have. I've seen all the goodies they're getting. They're gonna look like a bunch of 7-year-olds on Christmas Day.
I'm telling you, these range ready events are different, man. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun. Thanks for being with us, man.
All right, I appreciate it.
All right, well, that's it for us. We'll see you next time.